Big headline over the weekend, a lot of headlines. I mean, Memorial Day, Trump gave speeches at West Point and at Arlington. Pete Hegseth was magnificent at Arlington. Maybe the big political bombshell was the story from the New York Times, how Donald Trump has remade America's political landscape. The New York Times did an extensive, lengthy, deep dive into the political makeup of America. And the Times claims that Trump's victory in 2024 was not an outlier. It was the culmination of continuous gains by Republicans in much of the country each time he has run for president. A sea of red that amounts to a flashing warning sign for a Democratic Party out of power and hoping for a comeback. The steady march, now I'm quoting right from the pages of the New York Times, the steady march to the right at the county level reveals not just the extent of the nation's transformation in the Trump era, but also the degree to which the United States now resembles two countries charging in opposite directions. The New York Times analysis is America is lurching dramatically to the right, that Trump is remaking the country in his image. And I call BS on this article, and let me tell you why. I think the New York Times, which is committed to the utter defeat of President Trump's agenda, as they all are on the left. Look, I mean, it is what it is. We want their agenda to fail. They want our agenda to fail. We get it. We're a two-party nation. But I call BS on this claim that the New York Times is throwing in the towel and claiming that Trump has turned the country red. We've always known that if you look at a map of counties and states in America, we've always known that it's a sea of red. We are a conservative majority country. The left is loud, but they are in the minority, especially the far left. You got pockets of, Oregon and New York City and San Francisco and LA and Chicago. You've got big blue cities, of course, that have a Democrat stronghold. But you look at the country overall, we are a Republican country. Now, they hate that. The Trump opponents don't ever want to acknowledge it, but they know it's true. However, look at elections that have taken place in 2025. Special elections. One-offs. Have you seen who's been winning? Even in elections that the Republican was expected to win? Don't look now, but the Democrats have been winning. Now, there's all kinds of anecdotal evidence that things are going in the right direction. Rasmussen came out with a poll today, first time in their polling history that a majority of Americans feel that we are finally on the right track. It's a slim majority, but it's a majority nonetheless. I trust that that's true. Normal people like what's happening. Normal, ordinary Americans are very pleased with the direction of the country. The hysterics are not. The people who are the loyal opposition to Trump and Republicans, they're mortified. They're angry, they're bitter, they're irate. They're complaining about Trump's speech at West Point because he had his red MAGA hat on. They couldn't believe that he had a hat on. I saw some goofy woman on MSNBC whining about how inappropriate it was that he wore his red MAGA hat. Michael Steele over on, I'm very offended. I'm very offended. I'm continually offended at Donald Trump. Well, we know that. You guys are in a state of perpetual offense. You're bitter, you're miserable, you're mean, you're angry. We get that. But when I see this big article in the New York Times, and the media was breathlessly reporting on this, even conservative media. Oh, look at the New York Times, how Trump has remade America's political landscape. Oh, isn't this great? It's a sea of red, county after county, community after community turning Republican. Look at elections in 2025. If we screw up this big, beautiful bill, we're going to be in big trouble. We're going to be in a lot of trouble. Republicans have an ability to snatch defeat right out of the jaws of victory. We have the votes. We have the momentum. We have a lot going for us right now. And along comes a good guy like Senator Ron Johnson, Wisconsin. I like this guy a lot. I do not like what he's saying about Trump's big, beautiful bill.
I couldn't care less if he's upset. I'm concerned about my children, my grandchildren, and the fact that we are stealing from them. We are stealing from our children and grandchildren. $37 trillion in debt, and we're going to add to it as Republicans? That is unacceptable. And that's why there's no way I'm going to vote for this bill in its current form.
Okay, good. Your music, those words are music to the Democrat Party's ears. They're praying for Ron Johnson's to emerge victorious. They want Rand Paul to win. They want the naysayers, and let me just stipulate, Ron Johnson is right. We are adding to the deficit. We get it. We get it. You got to walk before you can run. You got to start somewhere. Here's Rand Paul.
You know, the bigger a bill, the more it includes, the more difficult it is to get everybody to agree to things. I supported the tax cuts in 2017. I support making them permanent, so I support that part of the bill. I support spending cuts. I think the cuts currently in the bill are wimpy and anemic, but I still would support the bill, even with wimpy and anemic cuts, if they weren't going to explode the debt. The problem is the math doesn't add up. They're going to explode the debt by, the House says $4 trillion. The Senate's actually been talking about exploding the debt $5 trillion. This year in September, when our fiscal year ends, the deficit will be about $2.2 trillion. Now, people used to always say, the Republicans would say, well, that's Bidenomics, that's Biden spending levels. When March, every Republican, virtually every Republican other than me, voted to continue the Biden spending levels, which are going to give us a $2.2 trillion deficit. Now, if you increase the debt ceiling $4 to $5 trillion, that means they're planning on $2 trillion this year and more than $2 trillion next year. That's just not conservative. So I've told them if they strip out the debt ceiling, I'll consider, even with the imperfections, voting for the rest of the bill. But I can't vote to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. There's got to be someone left in Washington who thinks debt is wrong and deficits are wrong and wants to go in the other direction. The idea that we're going to explode deficits, and the projections are now looking at over $3 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years, I think is just, not a serious proposal.
You know what is a greater problem than exploding deficits? Giving the Democrats their desperately needed victory. You either trust Trump or you don't. And I think it's fair to say that the Rand Pauls and the Ron Johnsons of the world don't trust Trump. You heard what Ron Johnson said at the beginning of that soundbite. He doesn't care what Trump thinks. He doesn't care. He cares about deficits and spending, and I get it. Why haven't they made these Doge cuts permanent? Elon Musk has kind of given up. Have you seen what Elon has been saying lately? It's essentially, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And a whole lot of Republicans are afraid to drink. I don't buy the New York Times alarmist article that Trump has remade America's political landscape. I think this is a truly deep fake. I believe the New York Times is using reverse psychology and trying to motivate their base into making sure that they move heaven and earth to defeat Republicans. Republicans like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul shouldn't help them. John is back in North Carolina. Hey, John, how are you?
Good, sir. Yeah, I want to say that I'm glad for this situation because it shows the face of who Ron Johnson and Rand Paul really are. And I know you say you know them and, you think they're good guys, but I don't. And the reason is because, first of all, what Ron Johnson and them are speaking is rhetoric, okay? The reason I'm saying it's rhetoric is because they have had the longest time when they had House and Senate majority to make changes through the Republican Party.
Right.
They're the ones spending for all this massive invasion of immigration to come into this country. A lot of them voted on funds that went towards that. And so I just believe that it shows who they really are, just like when we found out who the Bushes were through situations. Now,
I think it's fair to say that there are Republicans like Tom Tillis. If you look at their track record, we got Republicans in the Senate and the House who are not on board with Donald Trump, period. We know that. I don't think Ron Johnson is in that category. I believe Ron Johnson has a legitimate, sincere, genuine concern about the deficit. We all do. I get that. There are fiscal consequences that we're looking at. So, but this is part of making the sausage. They're in the factory right now, and they're going to have to get the best possible bill advanced. We've got the votes. Only if Republicans stay unified. But ultimately, it's not going to be perfect. And you know the expression, I used it with the House last week. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. You cannot blow up Trump's big, beautiful bill because it's not perfect. And I get it. We spend too much. We all understand that. Trump certainly understands that. Do you trust him or don't you? 800-655-Mike. Eric in Florida. Hey, Eric, how are you?
Hey, Mike. I was just going to say, just regarding the fiscal consequences, we have to appreciate what those things are. If we go over a cliff, lives are going to be badly impacted. So when you think about what Paul and Johnson are trying to do, they are trying to protect us financially in such a way that we're not going to be harmed badly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Wait a minute. Hold on. Fair enough. But if they torpedo the bill and hand the Democrats the victory that they want, because Eric, the Democrats want this bill to crash and burn too. Don't you think the consequences are going to be? Don't you think the consequences are going to be exponentially worse?
Yes, but the thing of it is the improvements that they'll make to the bill is really what matters. I want to know, why isn't Trump putting forth a bill that's already balanced? Why is exploding the debt still good?
I understand it's not still good because it's some of the fiscal realities that he's having to contend with. But what you just said, if they don't make enough improvements to Rand Paul or Ron Johnson's satisfaction, do you want the bill to crash and burn?
No, but I don't want the debt to explode either.
I understand that, but if the debt if the debt continues to increase, you want to blow up the bill?
Well, I don't think the bill should pass unless the debt is not going to increase.
If the bill doesn't pass, if the bill doesn't pass,
you're talking about trusting Trump. What are we trusting him to do?
Well, first of all, we're trusting him to do the job that we elected him to do, and look at look at what's in the bill. You can't ignore border security. You can't ignore military. You can't ignore shipbuilding. You can't ignore all of the things that are in there. You can't ignore the stripping all of the funding for illegal immigration. You can't ignore all of. I mean, there's a list as long as our arm. But what you're saying is you can't.
But we can only pay for what we can afford.
Well, we can. Well, look, we print more money is what we do, and I understand that it's a.
I know, but as you saw our credit rating get downgraded, you know that eventually when the government tries to issue more bonds, if people don't buy the bonds,
I get it.
we are in a world of hurt.
I get it. You know when we're in a bigger world of hurt? If you give the Democrats the victory they want. Eric, your objections are music to the Democrats' ears. In other words, all of your points are valid. All of Rand Paul's points are valid. When you say why, do you not trust Trump?
I do trust Trump to be the type of leader we've already seen him to be, but what I'm trusting him less on is to be fiscally conservative.
That's the
Look at his first term and now this.
And there's the problem, because you're trusting him less, and you're abandoning him, and you're going to give you're going to give Democrats the victory that they want. That's what they're saying. You sound just like Chuck Schumer. Do you realize you sound just like Chuck Schumer?
Oh.
You do. You're saying the same.
That's
you're
ridiculous,
using
Mike.
Eric.
No.
You're using the same
Mike,
rhetoric. You're using the exact
Mike,
same rhetoric as Chuck Schumer, Eric, and you don't even know it.
Well, then you're following Trump off a fiscal cliff.
No, I'm not.
I mean,
I'm not.
Okay,
I'm trusting.
That's what I'm saying. Rand Paul and Ron Johnson know a lot more about the debt than you and I.
Donald, and you don't think Donald Trump knows more about the debt than you or I. You don't think you're
yes,
if it's between Rand Paul, if it's between Rand Paul and Ron Johnson and Trump, who are you going to go with? If it's between Ron Johnson and Donald Trump, who are you going to go with?
What I'm hoping is I'm hoping that Trump is going to take their suggestions to heart.
Me too.
Whatever they put back into the bill to make it better.
Me too.
I hope Trump agrees to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
But if it falls short, you can't blow up the bill, Eric. If it doesn't check all the boxes,
I don't want to blow it up.
Well, then good. Then
let's
be with
improve it.
Let's get it better. I'm with you.
I'm
totally agree with you. Let's get it better. Let's make it better. But let's not blow it up to be Dr. No. Let's not be the Thomas Massey of the Senate and say, nope, not going to do it. It's not where I want it to be. And then you hand the Democrats the victory that they so desperately need. We do this over and over and over again. And Eric, don't lose your confidence in Donald Trump now. You've come this far. Don't blow it up. Don't bail now.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.